The people of Zarion Prime had never seen anything like it. One moment, the skies above the capital were clear. The next, a massive shadow fell across the city. Citizens looked up, pointing, some screaming. News drones buzzed through the air. Then came the sound, a deep, low hum that made buildings tremble. High above the planet, something had arrived. Something huge. It was not just a ship. It was the Leviathan. Dark metal, sharp angles, and a size so vast it blocked out the stars. The ship moved with slow, terrifying control. Dozens of smaller crafts hovered near it like insects, but none dared to get too close. Inside the council tower, panic spread. Leaders of the Galactic Concord gathered in haste. Chancellor Varel Thess stood at the head of the room, staring at the hologram of the ship. "What is that?" someone whispered. "Is it the Drax Empire?" another asked. Varel's voice cut through the noise. "No. This signal, it's from Earth." The room went silent. Earth, the lost planet. The ghost world that vanished after the first contact war, 100 years ago. No one had heard from Earth since. They had been written off, assumed destroyed or abandoned. Now they had returned. With this, a message played across every screen in the galaxy. A single calm voice. "This is Commander Lex Aaron of the Earth Federation. We come not as conquerors but as survivors. Earth lives, and we are watching." The message ended. No further communication. No demands, no explanations, just the silent presence of a warship large enough to level planets. Back in the council tower, Chancellor Varel turned away from the hologram. His face was pale. "Send a diplomatic ship," he ordered. "We need answers. Now." In orbit, inside. The Leviathan Lex Aaron watched the council's movements on his command screen. His face showed no emotion. Behind him his crew stood ready, silent, focused. They had waited their whole lives for this moment. Lex folded his hands behind his back and stared into the black void beyond the screen. "Let them come," he said. "We'll see if the galaxy still remembers how to listen." Lex Aaron remembered the fire. He was only 6 when Earth burned. Cities were turned to ash. Skyships fell from the clouds. Satellites blinked out like dying stars. The first contact war came without warning. Aliens came not to greet, but to conquer. Earth's defenses were weak. Governments fell in days. Billions died. Those who survived ran underground. Lex's mother carried him through the smoke-filled streets of New Berlin. His father, a soldier, stayed behind to fight. They never saw him again. The survivors built cities beneath the surface, dark tunnels lit by recycled light. They grew food in water tanks, filtered every breath they took. They waited, hoping someone in the stars would come to help. No one came. Years passed. The surface became silent. Earth was forgotten, but deep underground, something was happening. The survivors didn't just hide. They built. Using old tech and stolen alien scraps, they created labs and factories. Engineers, scientists, and soldiers worked together in secret. Earth had one goal: never be weak again. Out of this goal came the Leviathan, a ship unlike any other, powered by dark energy, an unstable force that most species feared to touch. Earth studied it in silence. They turned fear into fuel. Lex grew up among the engineers. By age 10 he could rewire a drone. At 12 he flew his first fighter in a simulation. At 16 he was leading real patrols through the lower tunnels. He didn't laugh much. He didn't cry either. There wasn't time for feelings in a world built on survival. At 22 he became the youngest commander in Earth's secret fleet. The same year he was chosen for one mission: lead the Leviathan when the day came to rise again. Now, 12 years later, he stood on the bridge of the ship staring at the stars. Earth was no longer silent. Earth had returned. "Commander," said Ensign Cora, his communications officer. No response from the conquered yet. Just panic signals. Lex nodded. Let them panic. Let them remember what they forgot. He turned and walked across the dark metal floor. The bridge of the Leviathan was silent, efficient, just like its crew. Every officer on board had grown up in the tunnels. Every one of them had lost someone to the First Contact War. None of them had forgotten. Power levels, Lex asked. Stable. Straight core is holding at 78%, said Chief Engineer Sato. We can keep orbit indefinitely. Good. We wait. No sudden moves. Lex stared at the screen again. Zerion Prime spun slowly below them. They need to know we're not the same Earth they left to die, he said quietly. We survived without them, and now they answer to us. His voice was calm, but beneath it was steel. Chancellor Varel Fez stood in front of the mirror in his private chamber, adjusting the gold trim on his robe. His hands were steady, but his mind raced. The Leviathan still hovered in orbit. Silent, watching, waiting. Earth's return had shaken the entire galactic concord. Panic was rising across member worlds. Some called for diplomacy. Others whispered of war. Varel looked older than his 207 years today. His skin, usually smooth and silver-toned, looked dull. His eyes, sharp and calculating, held a deep worry. He had spent a lifetime keeping peace in the galaxy. Now one ship threatened to undo it all. He activated his wrist comm. "Bring Agent Rigson to me," he said. Inside the council chamber, Lex Aaron arrived under heavy guard. The chamber was a circle of high-backed seats, filled with alien leaders of every shape and size, scaled, feathered, metal-skinned. All eyes turned as the human entered. Lex wore Earth's uniform, black, with a silver crest. He moved with calm purpose, his expression unreadable. Varel stood from his seat. "Commander Aaron," he said, with a practiced smile. "Welcome to the Concord. It's been a long time." Lex gave a small nod. 100 years, Chancellor. Earth has not forgotten. No one ever meant to abandon your people, Varel said smoothly. We thought Earth was lost. Lex's eyes didn't blink. You thought wrong, and no one came to check. An uncomfortable silence followed. One of the counselors shifted in his seat. Varel kept smiling. Let us not dwell on the past. We're here now. Together. We can find a peaceful way forward. Lex sat down at the table across from him. That depends on what peace looks like to you. Around the room, some counselors whispered to one another. Lex noticed. He was used to being watched, judged, underestimated. We came to open dialogue, Lex continued. But if Earth is threatened, we will respond, with force. Varel raised a hand in a calming gesture. No threats are needed, just understanding. You've built quite a ship, Commander. Impressive. Lex didn't respond. In a hidden chamber deep inside the Concord Tower, Agent Rigson received her orders. She was tall, lean, with green skin that shimmered in low light. Her eyes were black and sharp, and her movements silent. Varel stood before her, arms behind his back. I want you on that ship, he said. Find a way in. Disable what you can. Learn what powers it. It's not a ship, Rigson said quietly. It's a weapon. Varel nodded. Which is why we can't trust Earth. I've dealt with war before. If they push, we fall. Rigson bowed her head. Consider it done. Back aboard the Leviathan, Lex returned to his bridge. They smiled at you? Cora asked. Lex nodded. A lot of smiling. A lot of talking. They're afraid. They should be, Lex said. But even as he said the words, he felt something stir inside. Not anger, not fear. Something harder to name. Doubt. He didn't want war. But war was coming. He could feel it in the way Varel spoke, in the way others watched him. Their words said, peace, but their eyes spoke of strategy and survival. Lex turned to his crew. Stay alert. They'll make their move soon. Outside the ship, space was calm, but Lex knew better. The real battle had already begun. The alarms went off at 0300 hours. Red lights flashed across the corridors of the Leviathan. Crew members rushed to stations. Lex was already awake, standing on the command deck when the alert hit. Breach in Sector 9, said Cora, her voice sharp and focused. Unauthorized access detected. Security teams en route. Lex didn't flinch. Seal off the section. Catch them alive if you can. Agent Rickson moved like a shadow through the metal halls. She had slipped through the Concord delegation shuttle during yesterday's meeting, hiding in a transport crate. She wore a suit that bent light around her, almost invisible, unless you were looking straight at her. She had made it deep into the ship before the sensors picked her up. Now, security drones chased her through tight corridors. She dodged a stun bolt, rolled behind a power core, and pulled a small device from her belt. She pressed it to the wall, just above the ship's dark energy conduit. The device blinked green. Her mission was simple: gather data, disable what she could, and escape. She knew she might not survive. That didn't matter. The Concorde had to know what Earth had built. Lex watched the screen as his team cornered Rickson in the lower reactor hall. She fought hard, moving fast, but Earth's soldiers had trained for enemies like her. They brought her down with a net of charged cables. She hissed and thrashed but was caught. Lex stared at the image of her, breathing hard, eyes full of hate. He turned to Commander Vela, head of ship security. "Interrogate her," he said quietly. "No harm, just truth." "Yes, sir." Lex stepped away, hands tight at his sides. "She came to destroy us," Cora said. He nodded. "Not just that. She came to see what we've become." A few hours later, a transmission from the Concorde Council arrived. It was Varel. His voice was smooth as always, but his face looked strained. "We are shocked to hear of this intrusion," he said. "We will investigate at once." It was not an official order. Lex didn't believe a word. "She had Concorde access codes," he replied calmly. "She got through your own systems. Someone wanted her here." Varel gave a small apologetic smile. "We ask for your patience. Let us not let this misunderstanding damage our path forward." Lex ended the call without answering. Later he stood in the observation chamber, looking down at Zarion Prime. Around him the crew moved quietly. Everyone knew what this meant. Lex walked to the center of the chamber and activated the ship's broadcast system. "Open channel, all frequencies," he said. Cora nodded and pressed the button. Lex stood tall, his face calm, his voice steady. "To the galaxy, this is Commander Lex Aaron. We came for dialogue, for peace. But peace cannot be built on lies. We are not the Earth you remember. We are stronger now. We will not attack. But if attacked again, we will defend. Let this be clear. Earth does not kneel. Not ever again." The message echoed across thousands of systems. Some feared it, some admired it. On Zarion Prime, the people watched in silence. In the Concorde Tower, Varel clenched his jaw, and aboard the Leviathan, Lex sat down in his command chair, eyes cold. The war hadn't started yet, but trust was already broken. The days that followed were quiet, but tense. The Leviathan remained in orbit, unmoving, like a silent giant watching the world below. Zarion Prime stayed on edge. Civilian broadcasts begged for answers. Concorde military ships quietly moved into formation, pretending to patrol, but Lex Aaron knew better. They were preparing for war. In the Concorde war room, Chancellor Varel stood before a large display of the Leviathan's structure. "We attack now," he said to his inner circle. "Before Earth strikes first." "Are we sure they'll attack?" asked Counselor Dean, a short, lizard-skinned diplomat. "They've already broadcast a threat," Varel snapped. "That ship could wipe out our fleet in hours. We can't wait." He pointed to a small glowing dot on the map. "Our scientists believe this is their power source. If we hit that with enough force, perhaps a gravity warhead, we disable it." "And if it doesn't work?" another asked. Varel's face was hard. "Then we fight until one of us is gone." On the Leviathan, Lex sat in the dark, watching old Earth recordings. Cities in flames. Children in bunkers. Soldiers hugging their families before going underground. He remembered them all. He had trained his whole life for this moment. Yet now, standing at the edge of war, he felt tired. "Commander," Cora said from behind him. "Fleet movement detected. At least 10 warships forming a wall between us and open space." Lex stood and walked to the control board. "Are their weapons armed?" "Not yet. But they're charging systems, quietly. Lex nodded. They'll strike first. They want to paint us as the aggressors. He tapped the display, zooming in on Xerion's orbit. We won't give them that chance. Hours later, a council meeting was called. Lex appeared again, this time by hollow projection. His image stood tall before the Concord leaders. I see your ships, he said calmly. I know what you're planning. Varel stood to answer. We are protecting our world. Your presence is a threat. Lex's voice didn't change. Your agent tried to sabotage us. You've surrounded our vessel with warships. And now, you prepare a strike. Because you're holding a weapon pointed at our heads. Varel shouted. Lex leaned slightly forward. No, we're showing you what survival looks like when you've been forgotten for a century. The council chamber went silent. Lex took one step back. We are not here to start a war, but we are ready to finish one. His image flickered and vanished. Back on the ship, Lex returned to the bridge. Status of the Dark Core, he asked. Stable, said Chief Engineer Sato. We're holding it below full charge to avoid threatening signals. Lex nodded. Good. Let's not light the match until we have to. Sato hesitated. Commander, if they hit us first, you know this ship will respond. The core. I know, Lex said. And if it comes to that, we make sure it's the last war anyone ever fights. That night, Lex walked alone to the viewing deck. He stared at the galaxy beyond the glass wall. So many stars, so many worlds. He thought of Earth, still rebuilding. He thought of the people watching from bunkers and underground cities, waiting to see what their future would be. He whispered to himself, they want us to break first, but Earth had already been broken long ago, and from that brokenness, they built the Leviathan. Now, lines had been drawn in the stars. The next move would decide everything. The attack began without warning. It was early morning over Xerion Prime. The stars above the city flickered, and then streaks of white light flashed through the sky. 10 Concord warships opened fire. Their target, the Leviathan's dark energy core. On the bridge of the Leviathan, the crew moved fast. Alarms rang. Lights flashed red. Lex Aran stood calmly at the center, eyes fixed on the incoming data. They've launched 6 torpedoes, Cora said, tracking toward our core section. Shields? Lex asked. Up, but not strong enough to stop them all. Target their launchers. Disable only. No kills. Yes, Commander. Outside, the ship came alive. Turrets unfolded along the Leviathan's sides. Bright blue energy blasts shot out, hitting 2 torpedoes mid-flight. 2 more exploded near the hull, sending shockwaves through the ship. The last 2 struck the lower deck. The impact shook everything. Panels cracked. Crew fell. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Lex grabbed the console. Damage report. Core is intact, said Sato, sweat on his brow. But it's destabilizing. If they hit us again, the core might react. Everyone knew what that meant. Dark energy wasn't like standard fuel. It didn't just explode, it tore space apart. Back in the Concord war room, Varel watched the battle unfold. His advisors looked tense. Some whispered. Some stared at him in disbelief. They haven't fired back, said Counselor Dean. Varel's face darkened. They're waiting for the right moment. They'll strike soon. But deep down he wasn't sure anymore. Lex stood in silence, watching the enemy ships. He could order a counterattack. The Leviathan had more than enough firepower to destroy the entire Concord fleet. His crew waited for the word. Commander, said Cora. They'll fire again. We have one chance. He didn't answer right away. Instead, Lex walked to the center console and opened the comms. Broadcast galaxy-wide, visual and audio. Cora's eyes widened. Everything? Lex nodded. Let them see. She pressed the button. Lex stood tall. The hologram camera focused on his face, tired, calm, and steady. To the Concord, to the people of Xerion Prime, to the galaxy. We did not come here to fight, but we were attacked. I am standing on a ship that can end this war in seconds. But I won't give the order. Earth remembers what it's like to lose everything. We will not become the thing we hated. He stepped aside and let the feed continue, showing the wounded crew, the damaged hulls, and the giant ship holding its fire. The message spread fast. Across the galaxy, civilians watched in shock. On Zarion Prime, people gathered in silence, staring at the sky. And in the war room, one by one, counselors turned to Varel. "This has to stop," one of them said. "They held back," whispered another. "And we tried to kill them." Varel clenched his fists, but the room was already shifting. The mood had changed. Fear was turning into shame. He had lost control. On the Leviathan, Cora received a new signal. "It's the Concord fleet," she said. "They're standing down." Lex let out a slow breath. "Any word from Varel?" She checked. "Not yet." "Doesn't matter," Lex said. The people answered for him. He turned to the crew. "Power down the weapons, stabilize the core, and hold position." The battle was over, but the war of trust was still being written. And Lex knew, in that moment, he had just changed the course of the galaxy. Silence. For the first time in days, the skies over Zarion Prime were quiet. No weapons fired. No alarms rang. The Concord fleet floated in orbit like statues. The Leviathan remained still, its lights dimmed, weapons powered down. The galaxy was watching. Inside the council tower, Chancellor Varel paced the floor. He had lost control. The council had turned against him. Messages from hundreds of planets flooded in. Some angry, some ashamed. People demanded answers. They had seen the broadcast. They had seen Earth hold its fire. "This is your fault," Counselor Din said. "You attacked first. I acted to protect us." Varel snapped. "That ship. You gave them no choice." Another interrupted. "And they didn't strike back. Earth showed more restraint than we did." A moment later, 2 Concord officers entered the chamber. Chancellor Varel Thass. One of them said firmly, "You are hereby removed from command, pending investigation." Varel stared at them in disbelief. "You're arresting me." "No," said Din. "We're saving the Concord from you." The guards led Varel away. On the Leviathan, Lex stood before the main view screen, hands behind his back. He had been awake for nearly 2 days, but his mind was sharp. Cora stepped up beside him, holding a data pad. "The Concord has officially stood down. Varel is out. Council leadership wants to speak, peacefully." Lex nodded. They saw what they needed to see. She looked at him carefully. "You could have destroyed them." "I know," Lex said quietly. "But that wasn't the mission." A day later, a new Concord envoy arrived. Not armed, not guarded. A small delegation, heads lowered in respect, boarded the Leviathan. They stood before Lex and his officers. Counselor Din spoke first. "We were wrong. Earth was left behind. And now, you've shown us what strength means." Lex gave a slight nod. "Earth doesn't want revenge. We want to be heard. To never be forgotten again." "You have our respect," Dean said. "And our apology. The Council has voted. Earth is to be granted full membership in the Concord." A long silence passed. Then Lex extended his hand. "Then let's rebuild together." The next weeks moved fast. News spread across the galaxy. Earth was back, but not as a conqueror, as a survivor. And now, as a leader. The Leviathan was no longer feared. It was honored. A symbol of what could rise from ruin. Lex turned it into a peacekeeping vessel, protecting trade routes and helping rebuild damaged colonies. He visited other worlds, spoke at forums, shared Earth's story, and always reminded others. Power is not just about weapons, it's about choice. Months later, alone in the observation deck of the Leviathan, Lex stared at Earth on the screen. The planet was healing, cities above ground, lights returning. He closed his eyes, remembering the past, the war, the ashes, the tunnels. And then he whispered, just for himself, "We were forgotten. Now we lead."